Hi, my name is Brennan Prine. I'm a resident of Springfield Township in Montgomery County. If you're also a Springfield resident, then my neighbors and I would like to ask for your help in dealing with an important issue that has come before the township. On June 11th at 8 p.m., there's going to be a public hearing at our township building, which is at 1510 Paper Mill Road in Winmore. The topic is going to be a rezoning proposal by the owner of a large property called the TC Tract, which is at 9303 Ridge Pike in the Springfield Panhandle. Well, this proposal at this time would only affect a single area of the township. We think it's important for all of us to be concerned because of the implications it could have for properties elsewhere in the future. The TC Tract is one of our last large open spaces. The owner of the property has proposed a change that would result in a much more intense use and a greater impact on the surrounding community. If this intense developer proposal is permitted, it could have ramifications in the future for other large properties, which include Carson Valley School, Sandy Run Country Club, and Beischer Field. We feel that the community needs to stand together and encourage our commissioners to do the right thing by valuing the interests of the community over the pocketbooks of developers. If you feel that this issue is important, then please give me just a few more minutes of your time, and also sign our online petition and come to the public hearing at the Township Building on June the 11th. The Springfield Panhandle is a unique area of our township with history going back to colonial times. William Penn wanted his wife to be able to ride her horse from the Delaware to the Schuylkill River on her own property, and the only missing piece was near the Schuylkill. So they carved out a 1/3 mile wide strip of land, and that became part of Springfield. You can see the Panhandle near the bottom of this map and where it lies in relation to other Springfield areas such as Flourtown, Winmore, and Orland. Most of the Panhandle has experienced less development than the rest of the township. You can see that much of the area remains in a mostly natural state. It contains the Morris Arboretum, the Girl Scout Preserve, and several other undeveloped spaces. It's for all these reasons that the Panhandle, and the TC property in particular, is listed in the township's open space plan as one of the highest priorities for open space preservation. Now, the TC property lies in the heart of the Panhandle, occupying 42 acres. What I'd like to do now is explain a little bit more about the context of the property and why it's so important to the overall area. You can see from this picture that the property is in a very strategic location. It sits right next to the Andorra Natural Area of Fairmount Park and also touches the intersection of Ridge Pike and Manor Road. Manor Road runs down to the Schuylkill River, so it's easy to see how the TC property could be a strategic connection linking Fairmount Park with the Schuylkill River Trail. The property has the potential to become an extension of Fairmount Park, which would have great benefits for the public, the environment, and stormwater management. We have a vision for how this could happen, and that's what you're going to hear about shortly. But first, let's explain a little bit more of what's going on. So, what's proposed for the property, and why is this such a concern? The owner of the property, Mr. Fred Tisi, has entered a request to change the zoning on the property at the front from residential to institutional. This would allow him to build a personal care apartment building run by a company called Atria. Now, he does have the right today to build residentially. In fact, there's an existing plan for the property to build what's called an age-qualified development, meaning homes for people who are 55 and older. But instead, Mr. Tisi wants to build Atria on the front of the property. This would make the land much more valuable for him, but be a much greater impact on the surrounding community. We think that in exchange, that Mr. Tisi should be willing to commit to a significant amount of open space preservation on the remainder of the property. But instead, he's insisting on keeping almost all of his development rights. We've tried numerous times to approach him to see if we could sit down and work out a mutually acceptable conclusion, and each time he's refused. The rezoning proposal would permit a personal care apartment building on the front of the property, which you're seeing here. It would be 4 stories high, have 125 apartments holding up to 175 people, and have 70 employees coming to and from the building around the clock. It would occupy the front 7 acres of the property along Ridge Pike. So instead of some residential buildings, there would be an imposing structure that would dramatically change the character of the area. From our standpoint, the only justification for this increased intensity would be finding a way to preserve the rear of the property as open space. Springfield currently has far less publicly accessible open space than is recommended for a township our size. So the idea would be to address this need and also follow through on the township's open space plan, which, as I said, identified the rear of the TC property as having the highest priority for open space preservation. Instead, Mr. TC would like to build 34 age-qualified homes on the rear of the property. This is only 18 fewer homes than he would have built under a fully residential plan. You're looking at that full proposal here, the diagram showing both atria and the 34 homes on the remainder of the property. We just don't feel that's a fair trade-off for the increased intensity of atria. Despite Mr. TC's refusal to talk, our neighborhood group has taken a very constructive approach to this situation. In fact, we've hired a professional land planner and developed an alternate plan that we believe would be economically viable for Mr. TC and would also preserve the character of our neighborhood and achieve many of the open space goals in our township plan that I mentioned earlier. Our plan is based on three key things. First, that the owner should dedicate open space at about a 3-to-1 ratio to the area being rezoned. There are precedents for this in two other atria developments we found, one in Massachusetts and one near to here in Chester County, Pennsylvania. The increase in land value that would come from the change of the front 7 acres would more than compensate for the dedication of the requested open space. Second, for the rest of the property, you can see that we've identified 4 lots of about 2 acres each, with the 5th lot being for an existing home that's on the property. We have a plan to purchase the land of those 4 lots at fair market value, and we're asking for 3 years to raise the funds to do that. Our intent would be then to dedicate those plots as open space. If we can't do it in 3 years, then Mr. TC would be free to build on those lots. Lastly, we're willing to identify a nonprofit organization to become a permanent steward of the land so that the township would not be burdened with any form of upkeep. The bottom line is that we're willing to do our part to preserve this important property and at the same time ensure that Mr. TC's ability to derive legitimate value from his land is preserved. And as I said earlier, this whole thing is about more than just the TC property. If developers think that they can come into Springfield and get what they want without giving back, they'll certainly try to do it again in the future. Members of our township are currently having similar struggles with the Lloyd property on Willow Grove Avenue, and the Bourse property in Orland is already being developed. The yellow areas of the map that you see here are some of the other large and undeveloped areas that could be affected by the same situation unless the community makes it clear that we want a fair voice in these decisions. So coming out to protect the TC property is also protecting the future prospects of places like Carson Valley School, Beischer Field, and Sandy Run Country Club, just to name a few of the other important open properties in the township. I hope our neighborhood plan sounds as reasonable to you as I think it is. And frankly, the behavior of the property owner, who has made almost no effort at compromise, and who has ignored the surrounding community, borders on the outrageous. Obviously, he thinks he has the votes, and he's pushing forward with the plans for the hearing on June the 11th. I really believe that if we don't come together as a community and attend that hearing, there's a very good chance that he'll get what he wants. For him, it would be a monetary windfall. For the community, it would damage one of our unique environmental and historical assets. I hope you agree that we cannot let that happen. If so, then please, first of all, come to the hearing on June the 11th. Also, sign our online petition by visiting our Facebook page or just Googling the words Springfield Panhandle Petition. Also, call your commissioners to let them know that you're concerned. I thank you for your time, and I look forward to seeing you on June the 11th.